British fruit crops could be lost as farms face a lack of seasonal workers for a second year. COVID restrictions and changes to travel permissions post-Brexit have led to extra requirements to ensure European staff can make it across borders to the UK. Laura Macon-Isherwood reports.
Behind the glass at Flavour Fresh nurseries in northwest England, acres of vines hang, their fruits ripe for the picking. But while the work to harvest them has already begun, there are concerns that this year some plants could go to waste as COVID restrictions and Brexit travel changes slow the annual arrival of seasonal workers from Europe.
So a lot of them, they are cancelling the contracts with us because they have troubles to fly to England. The problems and the issues, they are from the other country like Germany, French, Belgium. That kind of country, they are close to England. They don't let us to pass, or they make our life harder to can reach England.
Steluta has been coming to the UK to work for the last 6 years, while travelling across Europe from her home in Romania has until now been straightforward. On her last journey, she says she experienced more police checks and border stops than ever before.
The most hard the thing become when they heard we are seasonal worker and we are coming in UK. So we didn't understand why they push and do everything possible to not let us come here in England. She took all the documents. They was force us to go back, no?
90% of the staff in these greenhouses come from Europe. The business is 100% reliant on them to operate. While the government has increased the number of 6-month visas seasonal workers can apply for from 10,000 to 30,000 this year, there are still many vacancies here and across the UK. Around 70,000 seasonal workers are needed in the United Kingdom every year to deal with the sheer volume of crops that need picking. If the workforce doesn't meet that strength, then there are real concerns that fresh produce in greenhouses and fields across the nation could go to waste. Facing a similar shortage last year, the government launched the Pick for Britain campaign, a bid to hire Brits to fill the gaps. But after that failed to yield high staff numbers, officials are now looking to the National Farmers Union for guidance.
These roles aren't easy. You know, they require a lot of hard work and they aren't suited to everyone. So this year, the NFU is working with the Department for Work and Pensions and local job centres to try and attract the right candidates and identify the ones who have the right skill sets, who will really thrive in these roles.
Wastage isn't the only challenge Britain's farms are facing. Changes to the cost of importing plants from Europe and sustainable fertiliser from India are adding financial pressures too.
We could get a bag for £1.08 before. We're now looking at £1.76 a bag.
How sustainable is that?
Unless the fruit price we get back for the fruit goes up, it's going to be a problem. We've already sort of saved costs wherever we can, and yeah.
Those who have made it to the UK know that every berry counts, compensating for staff shortages by working faster, longer, in an attempt to stop anything going to waste. Laura Macon-Isherwood, CNA, Southport.
And Eugenia will be back in a moment with your Asia business update, including boosting recovery from the pandemic. Hong Kong's business sector looks to the city's vaccine program for a leg up. And later, buskers go online in Singapore as the pandemic forces change.
This June, Asia's past, present and future comes together. Race to feed the world as scientists, farmers and entrepreneurs solve the impending food crisis. Journalist Yu Maraki unveils the transformation of Japan's social and political identity in Deciphering Japan, and relive the history of the Chinese Communist Party as it marks 100 years of existence. This June on CNA. From the top stories in Asia
A quicker, portable way of testing for COVID-19 in just 5 minutes.
to breaking news in the US and Europe,
US President-elect Joe Biden is set to formally introduce his top economic team.
with an eye on markets opening across the world.
Wall Street's major indices all closed the month with double-digit percentage gains.
It's the one bulletin that offers you a global perspective. World Tonight, daily on CMA.
They treat me like a slave.
तो एक के चलती हजारों आदमी भूखे मर जाते हैं।
मैं तो सोचता था कि मैं कहीं मम्मी को मैं बहुत बोलता था मम्मी मुझे कुछ अच्छा पॉइजन दे दो कि मैं मर जाऊं।
Oh my God, they've been blasting the wrecks.
A brand new season of Undercover Asia.
There was a huge manhunt for this man.
Podcast producer Rovik Roberts investigates a mysterious murder from the past.
This is a spicy case. Spicy.
To understand how Singapore turned from a city of vice.
Singapore was a Chicago of the East. Clashes and shootings were rampant.
Into one of the safest in the world.
When the killing started, holy smoke, it was a game changer.
Into the Vault 3, Wednesday on CNA.
ちゃんは山梨名物のほうとう食べたいもの触れていません。
リサーでオンとオフあります。
俺全部いつもオフかな。
へえ、こうやってなるんだ。
いい話。はいはい。
Japan Hour, Saturday on CMA. Japan Hour is brought to you by Sumitomo Corporation and SMBC.
A centuries-old history gives us an understanding of where China's future lies. I have a front row seat as China's new chapter unfolds, and I'm not about to miss this moment in history.
Olivia Xiong, CNA, Beijing.
In business news, consumer prices continue to push ahead in Singapore, with core inflation rising 0.6% in April compared to a year ago. That's just by a touch higher than the previous month. Core inflation excludes private road transport and accommodation costs. If you include those, the headline consumer price index climbed by 2.1% on year. And that's the fastest pace in almost 7 years. That's driven mainly by a sharp increase in car prices. Consumers were also paying more for household durables and food. A big surprise from New Zealand, where retail sales unexpectedly rose 2.5% on quarter in Q1. That's far exceeded Bloomberg's estimate of 1.8% decline. The uptick was driven by sales of electronics and outdoor recreational goods. The figure is a key input for its economy. And Singapore's High Court has accepted a request to freeze up to $3.5 billion of the assets of former oil tycoon Lim Ann Qi and his 2 children. Liquidators of Lim's firm, Hin Leong Trading, made the request so they can recover money owed to almost 24 banks and other creditors globally. The family's assets include multi-million-dollar homes, shares, funds, and country club memberships over the world. Hin Leong was placed under interim judicial management in April 2020 after it was found to have overstated its assets by at least $3 billion. The sum masked about $800 million worth of trading losses over a decade. The alleged fraud came into light after oil prices collapsed last year as the pandemic roiled markets. And copper prices have been rocketing higher this year, and there's forecast the rally will continue, the main driver being China's continued recovery from its COVID-19 slump. The benchmark copper price on the London Metal Exchange hit a record high early in May, more than $10,000 a ton, double what it was a year ago. And prices have remained above that 10,000 mark since. Strategists of Bank of America say that copper prices could even jump to $13,000. Investors say copper is turning into an attractive commodity, especially as major countries push for decarbonization. This boosts demand for electric vehicles, as well as wind and solar power generation stations. Copper